Hey folks, this is BusaBob from BusaBob's Garage, and today I'm changing the front suspension on a 1969 Ford Mustang. And where I'm at right now, basically I already removed the shock absorber out the top of the shock tower, and you can see the piece here. There's two bolts that come off the top of the shock, and then two bolts that have to be removed on the lower control arm. And I got myself a spring compressor, and this thing's actually doing the job quite well. It was rented through one of the local auto parts stores, and basically it's this style right here, and I just dropped this part down through the shock tower after removing the upper shock mount, and then put this piece on the top and slid it in between the washers here, and then compress the spring. So right now you can see that the spring is compressed and it's off of the lower spring perch on the upper control arm, and I'm getting ready to actually remove the tie rods and some other pieces right now. So I'll try to get some more shots of that as I'm moving along. Okay, sorry the lighting isn't great here, but the tie rods and the adjusters and everything are going to be coming out of here and getting replaced, along with the lower control arm and the upper control arm. So they have assemblies for the lower and uppers that already have the ball joints in there, so that's going to be the best way to go here, as well as the tie rod ends and everything. Those will all be replaced. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this tie rod, and there's a castle nut on top, and there's a cotter pin going through there. So just remove the cotter pin and take the nut off, or you can just bring it all the way to the top of the thread and then put your pickle fork in there, or just pound it. Since it's going to be replaced, I'm just going to pound it right out. Okay, right now what I have going on is I loosen the bolts. There's cotter pins on the castle nuts on the Pittman arm, on the lower control arm, and on the upper control arm. And as you can see, I just have them on the end of the threads of the bolt, and I'm going to put my pickle fork in between there and try to pound these out. Had a little bit of a problem with the tie rod end because it was really seized in there. I had to heat this up, and I wasn't able to just pound it out on top of the nut. I had to put the pickle fork in there and get a big hammer, and finally it came out after heating it up. I expect that these are going to be pretty nasty as well. I can see that there's rust on them, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, I was able to get the upper control arm ball joint and the lower control arm ball joint loose using my pickle fork, and it just took a big hammer, and these I didn't have to heat up. So next thing is going to be the sway bar and the front tie rod over here, and those bolts will have to come out through the bottom. So I believe as soon as I get that disconnected, the only thing left will be the mounts for the lower control arm. And sorry about the lighting, but those are up in there, and there are some cam adjusters on there, and you might want to pay attention to the position of the cams. And then for the upper control arm, again, sorry about the lighting, but there's the spring perch that has to come off, and then the upper control arm bolts are actually inside the engine compartment, and those are located right down here. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's right on the shock tower, and next to the exhaust manifold. So on the driver's side or the left side of the car, it's not going to be too much of a problem. On the right side of the car, the clearance is pretty tight in there, so it's going to be tough to get those out. Okay, this front tie rod or connecting arm is going to be a little bit of a problem. I already took the castle nut off the top, but I'm working on this bolt right here. As you can see, the plates are a little bit bent there, and there's a crack, so I may have to do some bending and welding to get that back into shape. So right now I'm working on getting this bolt off, and after that's done, I should be able to lift the other side off of the lower control arm and pull that thing right out, and I'm going to replace all the bushings in here. Okay, at this point I've got the lower control arm out, and I also have the front tie rod out. That was a little bit of a pain to get that piece out of there. The bolt wanted to be a pain to the very last thread. So I removed the Pittman arm from the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint, and then you can see the cam bolt that went through the mount for the lower control arm. So that's that, and now I'm moving up on to the the upper control arm and the spring perch. And as you can see, I've got the spring compressor coming up from the shock mount or the shock tower. So all I have to do is remove the two bolts inside the firewall or the engine compartment, and the upper control arm should come out, and then I'll reuse the spring perch. Okay, here you can see the difference in the lower control arms. Obviously the one on the right is the old one, and you can see that it's pretty tweaked. The new one is nice and straight, new bushings, new ball joint, so this should really improve things. So got the lower out, and now I'm going to go for the upper. Okay, the upper control arm is out, and basically I just wanted to show you the bolts on the back. So those just go right through the holes in the shock tower, and you see that the spring is still hanging there, compressed with the spring compressor. So that's about it. I'm going to just put everything back together, the way it came apart. New parts. And again, I'm going to save the spring perch off of the upper control arm, and that should do it. Okay, good luck on your project.